Today's focus is the 6 stages of a stock split and why Tesla was basically up $150 yesterday. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. Also wanted to note that we're going to be working from a document I got yesterday, and we're going to post it on our Facebook page after the show today. But the folks that are part of our Patreon have actually had it since last night when we got a hold of it, and I think you'll find the information excellent. 2 quick notes. Number 1, do not curse when you write notes to us in our pages, because you'll be blocked immediately, and Google deletes those because they get in trouble too. And the third thing I wanted to note is that we have a list of books that we recommend for our show. We want you to be better informed. So we actually have on that list Peter Lynch's One Up on Wall Street, as well as Taleb, The Black Swan, both of which we recommend and think they're excellent sources of information. And we'd like to continue to improve the quality of information that you have. It's a key part of our show. So yesterday afternoon, I was watching Tesla's stock price erupt 140 points, and then I guess it pulled back to in the 100 range at the end of the day at 2141. I was fascinated by that because it turns out both Apple and Tesla, because they're splitting on the same day, are actually going through stages or stages of stock split. So this morning, you'll notice that Apple's stock is actually up. It was pretty strong up early in the week, Monday, and now it's sort of regaining the strength back up into the 510 neighborhood that it was in at the peak at the beginning of the week, all driven by us heading into the stock split. So today, instead of just discussing my general thoughts on where splits occur, I thought I would first start out with this list that I got and make some addendums to it based on my experience. And then we'll post that. But I also wanted to encourage you to think about how accurate it has been. I'm sort of blown away by the quality of the information. So first, there's stages of a stock split. The first stage is the pre-announcement. Stocks usually enter this stage quietly and without fanfare after a long period of healthy earnings growth. However, in some cases, emergence into the pre-announcement stage occurs quickly, as unexpected events or windfalls cause rapid increases in the stock price, Tesla. This stage is often associated with great appreciation in share value. The key to profiting from this stage is being able to determine which stocks are the most likely to split and when. As you noticed, in the case of Tesla, there was a lot of discussion about a stock split aiding the process of entering into the S&P. So I think this part of it is pretty accurate. The second stage is announcement. The positive publicity surrounding the announcement of a planned stock split usually attracts a large number of new buyers. This influx of traders and investors often drives the stock higher, giving exceptional price increases for those positioned in the stock prior to the announcement. So congratulations for those of you both on Apple and on Tesla that were already holders, and you've benefited greatly, especially yesterday. Next is the dormancy phase. There is generally a return to normal price behavior in the weeks following a split announcement as the initial interest subsides and traders take some profits. The shorter the period of time between the announcement and the split date, the less subdued this stage will be. We've kind of seen that dormancy phase. I guess with Tesla, the recent heavy down dip of almost 200 points and now recovering seems to have allowed sort of the market makers to sort of take control and push the stock around as we're kind of a far distance away from where things were. The next stage that they discuss is something called the pre-split run. For many stocks, this is the most powerful phase of the split cycle as investors dramatically bid up the price of the limited supply of shares. So I really feel, obviously, we're in a pre-split zone right now. Tesla opened the day at 2141. We saw a high, I believe, of 2187. So it looks pretty obvious on no other news that there's really this push going on related to the split. The next stage is split execution. The day of the stock split provides the final announcement to the public that the stock has split. Many investors who watch the stock rise at the announcement and are again during the pre-split run will now buy shares at lower split prices. These final buyers will push prices even higher. So in theory, split execution obviously is Monday. We're looking forward to this pop that we discussed and are expecting to occur, particularly as the split happens, and many new buyers can now access the shares that weren't able to previously. The final stage they discuss here is what's called post-split depression. After the last buyers have taken positions, investors' interest in the stock begins to fade, along with the excitement surrounding the split. Prices will often retreat as shares are sold to lock in profits. This stage frequently offers excellent shorting opportunities. So I think that the logic of the final stage makes sense, probably both for Apple and for Tesla. I guess I would argue that this probably is more of an Apple thing than it is a Tesla thing, because as we get through this, there starts to lurk the whole question of the S&P between, I guess that's a 2 or 3 week period theoretically that this might occur. So I could definitely see this post-split depression occurring and potentially the stock getting whacked, particularly because this is the stage also where I believe the stock is going to be up in the 2,500 neighborhood. And what's going to happen is the analysts are all going to say, well, shoot, it's split adjusted. It's up in the 25 to 2,700 range now. And we think it's well beyond sort of any fundamentals that we think make sense. So therefore, some, maybe downgrades or side grades might affect the stock at this point. The other problem that pops up that they don't mention here is that we kind of enter these different zones of no man's land. So the company can't make official statements as we head towards the quiet period. You have the real control belongs to the expert traders as well as the analysts who are willing to put their necks out there. Right now for Tesla, it's mostly upgrades, but in some cases downgrades. And so I think we could add to that post-split depression the fact that we're going to see a lot of moves being made by people with the power to move that stock, probably more in a negative than a positive direction. But I'm kind of hopeful that a counterweight to this might be the fact that with a lower stock price and more people buying ahead of all the news coming out on Tesla, we might see a more positive push on it. But I can't argue with this post-split depression period. So whoever created this, happy to give you attribution if you'd like. Excellent piece. Highly recommend you guys take the time to sort of review the reading I gave just now. I think that if you carefully manage yourself over the next couple of days, particularly on the options side, I think it could be extremely lucrative. Also wanted to note that those of you who are not Patreon subscribers, you're missing out on stuff like this, a day or two early, so you can plan accordingly, and other information that we provide there. So highly recommended you consider entering Patreon and trying it out for a month, but because especially as we head into this heavy trading zone, I think you'll find it very, very useful. Now, now that I've sort of gone through the list, and I actually think it's an excellent one, I would say that my experience with splits, particularly had a couple with Microsoft, was that what I found was that in general, the stock was sort of on the rise after the split, and good money was being made, but I wasn't trading as heavily on the options side at that point. So I would say that the shorting that might go on is not inappropriate, because if you have something that pushes up in price as dramatically as Tesla has, and then Apple has, Apple's up $100 since their earnings, over $100. Not a bad analysis that was provided. So, I think that there's some caution that's in order as we close out the split process. And, if you can, try to take some profits or hedge yourself, or plan to just be a long-term holder out a month or so. We have a show idea that I've been working on, and I call it, kind of should you stay or should you go, based on what was just described. There's another issue, which is there's all this news, particularly the S&P, that's going to hit. And do you try to sort of get your profit now, jump out, and then return after the, as we head towards the S&P announcement / earnings, as a way to sort of let the profits that might disappear sort of go to somebody else, and then you could buy back in again. I guess I feel like one can sleep better if you're further out. There are a couple of 3 months if you're in the option zone. And if you're obviously in your stock zone, just hang in there, because I think the split's going to be nice. I think there's a lot of good news that's on the back burner that's going to hit Tesla over time. And so I think that there's no need to, there's no need to sort of rush in or rush out if you're a stable holder. I'd have to say, I don't have the money to do it, but I'd say the most people I'm most envious of right now is the folks that are sitting 3 to 6 months out on their options, particularly calls on Tesla, because you have all that craziness that might occur. But I really think that the company solidly positioned with excellent prospects going forward. In the case of Apple, obviously solidly positioned, doing extremely well. I would say they're in a similar situation as well. But I do think that both of them suffer sort of the post-split curse that's been discussed here. So these are things to note. Hopefully, as you enter other splits, you return to this rules of the split process show to sort of anticipate what might occur at those different stages, and are able to optimize your profits accordingly. As usual, we've sort of finished our stock discussion, and we kind of bounce into our health tips that come from doctors that were at the NIH from throughout the country. The first one is, don't forget the 25 leg lifts a day for both legs with a 5-pound weight, which came from the University of Michigan, MD, PhD. He recommended it because your quad muscles being strengthened reduces the chance of there being knee issues. The second recommendation from a doctor at the University of MD, PhD at the University of Louisville was to avoid going to bed within 4 hours of eating, ideally, because the food fully digests, minimum 2 hours, because he's a cancer doc, and busy people who are going to bed early allow the acids from stomach digestion to roll up into upper respiratory, and it initially causes indigestion issues and eventually causes cancer. So he recommended minimum 2 hours to let the food digest to some extent, and ideally 4, let it fully digest. Following on to that concept is something called the 5-2 diet. One of our NIH docs recommended looking at some kind of fasting. About 60% of the doctors that we surveyed are all doing one or another form of fasting. So if it's good enough for them, it might be good enough for us as well. And then the last one I would recommend, I'm adding for today, is from one of our researchers at NIH who focuses on mental health. And he suggested going dancing once or twice a month, or playing a musical instrument is a great way to maintain mental faculties as well. We usually close out with our usual language, which is Tschüss German, au revoir French, Lehitraut Hebrew, Choda Hafez Farsi, Zdravstvuyte, hello in Russian, Ni hao ma, hello in Chinese, Assalamu alaikum, Muslim, Hey do, Swedish, and in Jamaica we say Nuff respect, walk good man. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. Happy trading, and let's make some money.